Turning now to one of our top stories, the heartbreak in Texas after that devastating school shooting. Let's bring in live now Gordon Flake, the CEO of the Perth USAsia Centre. Gordon, just devastating scenes watching this happening again in the US. I think everyone's thinking now, could this one be different? Could this shooting be the one that leads to some sort of gun reform in the US?
You really can't understand the inability of the U.S. political system to respond to this issue without understanding the broader political context in the United States today, where there really is gridlock. There are issues where there are broad public consensuses, and yet that broad public consensus is not being reflected in policy. There's something about nearly 90% of Americans that want to see stricter controls on the ability of mentally ill people to get guns and policies put in place that would limit that. There's a broad consensus in the United States around a whole range of gun control actions. And yet, given the way the system is structured, a relatively small number, particularly of United States senators, who overly represent a relatively small percentage of the overall population, have been able to stymie that. But again, it's not just gun control. It really is a broader evidence of how currently unrepresentative the U.S. Political system is in responding to policy mandates from the broader public.
Gordon, we heard Joe Biden, the US president, really slamming the gun lobby. How is it that that gun lobby is so powerful in the US?
Well, money. The U.S. political system, another element of it that is so destructive is the role of money in politics, and the gun lobby has been quite effective at not just donating money to supporters, but mobilizing its resources to attack detractors. And so one of the things that's quite remarkable about the debate right now is, despite these screams of anguish, the Democratic Party itself has, until very recently, not been willing to lead on these issues. It's worth remembering that Ronald Reagan passed an assault weapons ban. That assault weapons ban was allowed to sunset under the George W. Bush administration. Now, so things which were common sense in the past are not common sense today, mainly because it is just a further symptom of that deep political divide in the United States today, and it's going to require a broader systemic approach to solve it.
Joe Biden learned of the shooting on his way back to Washington after that Asia tour. We know that he attended the Quad meeting in Tokyo with our new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. What struck you about those talks in terms of outcomes? Just how significant was it for our new Prime Minister to be there?
Well, the juxtaposition of these two events actually highlights one of the challenges the United States is facing right now. Under President Biden, the United States really has kind of had a snapback in its international reputation in terms of diplomacy, in its support for alliances, in its advocacy for democracy. One of the main themes of the summit meeting in Tokyo with the Quad was the launch of this Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, an organization of democracies. But what undercuts the U.S. message is ongoing questions about the strength of its own democracy back at home. And I think that was a rather jarring juxtaposition for the president. To one thing to talk about a democratic system expressing the will of the people, and that being an area of commonality between Australia and India and Japan and the United States as we work together on a raft of issues in this region, and at the same time to face some of the problems the U.S. has domestically. So there is clearly a sense of the United States still needing to get its own house in order. Having said that, I mean, from an Australian perspective, the Quad couldn't have gone better. It was a wonderful opportunity for our new Prime Minister on his first full day in office to have individual meetings and then a collective meeting with these three very important global leaders. And I think as Australians, we should be quite pleased with our position at the table.
And just as that Asia tour wrapped up for the US president, North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles early yesterday morning, according to South Korea's military. Was there some sort of message there for the US? I know North Korea is one area of particular expertise for you. What's the plan there? What are they playing at?
Look, we have for decades now tried to ascribe intent to North Korea in terms of the exact timing of missile tests and nuclear tests. My view has long been that they tend to test according to their own calendar and according to their own preparedness and the technical requirements of a program which has continued to develop. There was a lot of anxiety that North Korea might conduct this test while U.S. President Joe Biden was in South Korea just days before the Quad Summit or during the Quad Summit itself. The fact that it took place afterwards is just further evidence that North Korea's missile capabilities and the range and the reliability of those capabilities continues to grow and continues to be a challenge, not just for South Korea and Japan, but for the United States, for Australia, for the rest of the rules-based order that is under threat, not just from the range of North Korean missiles, but from what they mean for the undermining of the international system, the rules-based order upon which we rely, not to live in a world where there is a proliferation of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction and destruction, and long-range missiles, etc.
Gordon Flake, always appreciate your insights. Thank you.